Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to a look at the nominees for Planet F1's Team of the Season. Once again, I'm joined by Dan to discuss a few of those nominees, and then after that, it's all down to you guys. You can vote for your Team of the Season by following the link in the description. That will of course take you over to planetf1.com, and your 8 nominees are Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, Renault, Haas, Force India, Sauber and Toro Rosso. And for anybody wondering why McLaren and Williams are not included on that list, let's be perfectly honest about this. They've been very poor this year. So that is pretty much why. So I think once again, Dan, the obvious place to start is with the world champions Mercedes. A fantastic season, a 5th consecutive Constructors' Championship. And that's one hell of an achievement anyway. One off now Ferrari's record, of course. And as well, many would argue they've had the second best car this season. So that makes the achievement equally impressive. But as a unit, as a team, all together, they've been very much unstoppable this year.
Yeah, once again, absolutely stellar. They look unbeatable. They really do. And at the summer break, it looked as if we had a real fight on our hands between Mercedes and Ferrari. Then the team stepped up a gear. Hamilton, as we spoke about yesterday, stepped it up a gear, and they've really pushed on. And the gap now in the championship almost looks as if it's been a one-horse race all season, but it really hasn't. And Mercedes, once again, it is a little bit of a dominant patch now, which, isn't the best for Formula One, but for them, brilliant, thoroughly deserved.
That's it, yeah, they're dominating, but they're dominating because they've got everything in the right place and they've got it all together at the right time, so that shouldn't take away from them. But I've got to say this, because if I don't, then I'm not being fair. You said there about it looking like a runaway win in the Constructors, but if Bottas had booked up his ideas, as we've said in a few live streams now, that title would have been wrapped up a lot sooner, if we're being completely honest. It's harsh, but I think it's fair.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And if we're being totally honest, if Bottas had performed like you say, they probably could have wrapped up the title around Russia, Japan time. So brilliant job from the team. Once again, thoroughly deserved. Really impressed with Mercedes once again this year, which shouldn't come as a surprise anymore.
I think we have to point out as well, 2 retirements all year, and both of those came in Austria. So once again, they've delivered an incredibly quick car and a massively reliable one. Not that Ferrari haven't, but Mercedes just seem to have trumped it again there with, as I've said so many times, they very much are the complete package if you include driver and team boss and mechanics. Everything's just come together for them this year. And as you've already said, Dan, and as I've said as well, it's a thoroughly deserved championship. We're going to talk a little bit about Ferrari as well. A lot of people might be surprised that they're on the nominated list, given some of the team mistakes and driver mistakes. But the truth of the matter is, Dan, they built a very, very good car this year that some argue was the quickest of the season.
Yeah, I'm one of those people. I really thought for the majority of this season, they had the best car. You look at their best results over the season, plenty of wins, plenty of second places. So they've always been thereabouts. But I think in contrast to Mercedes that we just spoke about, Mercedes have everything in the right place. And that's the difference. And I think Ferrari, next couple of years, probably will have to find that almost Mercedes mojo that they have just to push them that little bit further in the championship. But Ferrari, yeah, mistakes from drivers, but in terms of the car itself, a brilliant car, should have been fighting for that world championship, both drivers and constructors.
I mean, I thought they would. I thought this title was going down to the wire, but it just didn't happen in the end, and Vettel's mistakes were key to that. But also, and it seems to get forgotten, Ferrari have had their fair share of mistakes as well, and that's contributed to it. And Maurizio Arrivabene, to be fair to him, in a recent press conference, did say that Vettel's made his fair share of mistakes and they've made theirs. So it's a team, as they always say, they win together and they lose together. So at least they're holding their hands up to those errors, and I think that's the most important thing here. But Mercedes thoroughly deserved that world title, and Ferrari, for all the problems they've had this year, they were closer, and going into 2019, I think they'll be very, very confident. So probably not my team of the year, Ferrari, if I'm being completely honest, but it's really exciting for the future of Formula One going into 2019 that Ferrari are making these steps forward. But another team we do want to talk about, and I think one of, if not the team of the season, is Haas for me. Were they 8th place in 2017, I think, in the World Championship, and they end up 5th? And if we're being completely honest, Dan, without criticising them too much, they probably should have been 4th come the end of the season if you factor in things like Grosjean, his sloppy start to the season, the wheel gun issues in Australia, the disqualifications in Italy and in the US. They are big points that they lost out on.
Massively. My boy Romain Grosjean, I love him to pieces, but what he was doing at the beginning of the year was unacceptable for any driver in any team, and how he's kept his seat for next year is a miracle. Obviously, I'm very happy about it, but the mistakes he was making over and over, costing the team so many points in the championship. And if you look at the difference between themselves and Renault, just that one race in Australia could have been the difference. So, like you say, factor that with all the Grosjean mistakes, with the 2 disqualifications, one for Grosjean and one for Magnussen. It's really hurt them this year, and it's such a shame. But let's not take that away from the fact that 5th in the championship is still a huge achievement for this team that's only in their 3rd year of Formula One, up against works teams like Renault, big manufacturers like McLaren. It's been a really solid job for them this year, a real underdog story. It's been great to watch.
It's a strange one for Haas, because I get the feeling that Gunther Steiner and Gene Haas will look at this season and say, 5th place, should have been 4th, what could have been, but to go from 8th to 5th is a hell of an achievement, and they shouldn't ever look at this as a disappointing season. It's been brilliant, and if they can build on that next year, I think they're going to struggle with Renault inevitably going to make steps forward, and you would imagine Sauber will as well. You can throw Force India or whatever they're called back in there. It might be tough for them to replicate that, but it's been fantastic this season. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And he wasn't in the nominations for driver of the season, but I have to say, Kevin Magnussen, absolute revelation this year.
Completely, yeah. You compare him to last season, a whole different driver. He's stepped up such a huge amount this year. I was doubting him over the winter, but the beginning half of this season, yeah, he really carried that team.
Yeah, those points at the start of the year, it's quite funny with Haas this year. I know we're talking about them a bit more than maybe I wanted to, but if you look at Grosjean's mistakes and then Magnussen making up for those, and then second half of the year, Magnussen's not been on the pace of Grosjean and Grosjean's made up for that, it's kind of worked, and I can kind of see why Haas have stuck with that lineup. But we're going to talk about Renault now. Once again taking a big step forward in 2018. I'm not going to lie, I didn't think they would end up as best of the rest this season. I really didn't. I thought McLaren would be in that fight. How wrong were we on that one? I didn't expect Haas to be up there, but I thought Force India were going to take that 4th place with what we've seen over the last couple of years. But I think a stellar season. Hulkenberg's consistency, as we were talking about yesterday, has gone a long way to helping that one. Carlos Sainz, do you know what? Funnily enough, Carlos Sainz hasn't been as bad as I thought he was when I look back at some of his results this year. So his relative consistency has helped them a long way. It's a solid season, a big step forward, and I think they are very positive for the future. But a good season. I don't think my team of the year, but they'd certainly make probably top 3.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement, if I'm being honest as well. I didn't expect them to be 4th in the Constructors. I really didn't. I expected a step up, but not quite a step that they've made. So definitely a great candidate for Team of the Season.
See, I've gone and said they're inside my top 3, but actually we forgot about Sauber. What a turnaround for them. I mean, I thought they'd improve. I mean, naturally they would do because they've got that up-to-date Ferrari power unit, which is always going to help. But I didn't expect them to really pick up like they have this year. I thought that Alpha investment would make the difference for 2019. But when you look at what Charles Leclerc's done, Ericsson's been better as well. Yes, the car is partly to blame for that, but him as a driver, in my opinion, he's been better. But the development curve they seem to have hit as they've improved through the season, I would argue they've ended the season as the 4th fastest car on the grid. And I was never expecting that at the start of the season, not in a million years.
Yeah, it's another example of how unpredictable Formula One can be. We just spoke about Kevin Magnussen completely turning his season on his head over the course of the winter. Sauber, last year, completely nowhere. Talking about maybe them dropping off the grid for this year. I mean, they were out in Q1 almost every single race. Pascal Wehrlein only picked up a couple of points. A few fluky races, you could even say. But this year, definitely not fluky races. And when you say they've been best of the rest these last few races, yeah. 100% I agree. Charles Leclerc has been comfortably in that P7 in Mexico, Brazil and Abu Dhabi. They've had a massive turnaround. Again, another brilliant story. Again, it's going to be so difficult to pick Team of the Year.
What I will add to that as well is if they got the strategy right in Abu Dhabi with Leclerc, it could have been more points. And if Ericsson hadn't have had that contact with, Romain Grosjean in turn 1 in Brazil, he could have been on for big points as well because he started 6th, of course. So even though they've had a fantastic season, they narrowly missed out on passing Force India for 7th. If you look at things like I say, Abu Dhabi and Brazil, they could have done it. But 8th place, like you say, Dan, for a team that nearly fell off the grid last year, a couple of years ago, whatever, should not be sniffed at all. So they are the 5 teams that we picked out for discussion then, but don't forget Red Bull, Force India and Toro Rosso are also in that vote. So I guess coming to you then, Dan, who were your team of the season?
It's such a close vote, this one, and I'm not going to lie, any of the 4 teams we've fully gone through could be in there. But for me, the one I'm going to just about go with is Renault. And the reason I'm picking Renault just over Haas is those 2 disqualifications and those mistakes in Australia. I know, tiny margins, but Renault just about edges it for me.
Yeah, I think Renault are a good shout, thoroughly deserve for 4th place, but I'm really torn between Haas and Sauber, I'm not going to lie. But I think because of their season as a whole, and also their turnaround from 2017, I'm going to have to go with Haas. I think they are Team of the Year, for me at least. As always, though, they were just our thoughts and our opinions, but ultimately it is down to you guys. Who are your team of the 2018 season? You can vote for either Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, Renault, Haas, Force India, Sauber or Toro Rosso by following the link in the description down below, and that will take you over to Planet F1. The vote closes on Saturday, December 8th, and we'll be revealing the results together on Monday, December 10th. Now, I will be back tomorrow with Jonty with the nominees for Best Overtake of the season. But in the meantime, you can follow me over on social media. Links to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook and to Discord are all in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.